A very good morning to all of you joining us. You're watching Good Morning Sri Lanka right here on MTV Sports. Well, I hope your week has started off well. I know it's still just the beginning part of the week, and don't worry, before you know it, the weekend will be here. And to get you to that, we've got a whole lot of activity happening this week. To start off with, we've got the Colombo International Theatre Festival that kicked off yesterday and will be held until the 2nd of April. Now, the Colombo International Theatre Festival, of course, will be having international theatre productions from countries like Germany, Iran, and our neighboring India, as well as many other countries. We've got we'll be having two directors from the Colombo International Theatre Festival coming on the show tomorrow to talk to us about children's theatre, something that is exciting, and I'm sure it will be very beneficial to young and budding actors. And coming back to today's lineup, we've got a lot of stories, interesting stories later on in the show as well. But before that, I have with me right now Mr. Janaka Ratnayaka, who is the chairman and chief executive of the Sri Lanka Export Development Board. He's here to talk about the Expo 2012 that will be held, that will be starting off tomorrow, sir.
Yes.
And a very good morning to you, first of all.
Good morning to you.
Now, this event is being held with the intention of attracting international overseas buyers to Sri Lanka, yes, while also instilling confidence in our local products and services.
Yes.
How has the preparation been in the run-up to such a big event, and what sort of participation should we be expecting?
Yeah, it's very encouraging to note that we have attracted many visitors into this. Of course, we have been, preparing for this almost an year. So this event, as you mentioned, will take place from tomorrow for 4 days, from 28th to 31st. And exhibition will showcase our exports, the product that we export.
Okay.
From large-scale exporters to small-scale exporters.
Okay.
And we are trying to attract, we have attracted many trade buyers, investors, and a lot of international journalists to come for this particular event. Plus, we have attracted two operators also, that is to boost our tourism in the country.
Okay.
So up to now, up to yesterday, we have attracted more than 1,300 people coming from 57 countries.
Oh,
it's going to be a big event.
Big event,
yes,
indeed. Before we talk more about the Expo 2012 itself, I'd like to talk a little bit about exports in general, sir.
Yes.
Now, backtracking a bit, about 2 years back, you set yourself a strategic target of reaching 15 billion US dollars
yes,
in exports
yes,
by
yes,
2015.
Yes.
2 years on, how do you see this target? How achievable do you think it is?
Yeah. If you look at the exports revenue for the last 2 years, has been growing over 22%. And we had a little a problem in 2009 with the crisis, the world crisis. But 2010 and 11, the exports picked up and grown over 22% each year. So we have reached 2011 10.5 billion.
Oh.
And it's very encouraging to note that although there were many problems prevailed all over the world, we call it like the recession in Europe and America, and the sovereign debt crisis, and the Arab Spring. So having all those troubles, the exports have done remarkably well.
That's good. Also talking about the Arab Spring, so, with countries like Iran and Iraq and Iran and Syria and Libya making up a significant amount of total tea exports, if we talk about, say, around 55% of tea exports, if I'm not mistaken. And now these countries are in severe political turmoil. How do you think that this gap in the exports could be bridged? Is it?
To be exact, it is not 55%. If you look at these four countries, this is Syria, Libya, Iran and Iraq.
Okay.
Accounted only less than 30% of our tea exports.
Oh.
It's around less than 400 million. But if you look at again the problem in Iraq is easing off. The Libya is recovering. And Syria, sanctions imposed by UN. And Iran, people talk about many things. But comparing the problems that we had in this region, if you look at our exports, even last year, it's grown up almost by 10-15%. I think we are quite resilient because resilient to the problems that we talk about. Talk about problems in Europe, problems in many parts of the world. But since we produce the best products,
Yeah.
what we export, our markets are not being affected. And we
Right.
are lucky in that way.
Okay. Also, you spoke about export growth.
Yes.
Tell us how you view the relationship, the trade relationship with the U.S. right now, and with the pressure that is being mounting up in that department. How do you view that trade relation between the two countries right now?
Many people do not know that America is the largest trade partner of Sri Lanka. If you look at the trade between these two countries, is almost 2.5 billion US dollars.
Okay.
And what is very significant in this particular country is that we have a surplus trade balance of over 2 billion. We export almost 1.4 billion worth of items to America, being the largest, the buyer, accounting almost 24% of our exports. And we import only less than 400 million. If you look at trade between these two countries, it's very favorable to us of almost 2 billion. Therefore, American factor and the market is very important to us.
Very good. Also, so now about the exports make up about, I think, about 20% of the country's gross domestic product.
Yes.
And what new avenues have you looked at as the export? What new avenues of export revenue have the Export Development Board looked at, other than the traditional mainstays like tea and apparel industry? Have you considered the potential in avenues like ICT and the BPO sector?
Yes. Now it's like ever-changing cycle of anything,
Yeah.
We were talking about traditional for our agricultural products some time back. Now you have put the garments also into that, It's not fair in the sense like now garments came into exports almost, less than maybe 10-15 years. But if you look at the revenue that we earn from exports of garments is almost 40%. Now ICT, we did a survey almost 6 months back. We found out that we are earning around 400 million from this, having a growth rate of over 40% in that particular industry. That is, we are talking about ICT, KPO and BPO.
Okay, it's looking very productive.
Very productive and having almost 90% of over value addition. That means that unlike any other products, we retain a lot of money and profits within the country. So it's changing, like ICT, many new products and services will come into exports with the growth of export sector.
Now, some time back, it was anticipated that the GSP Plus concession will, in some way, harm the garment exports.
Yes.
But now that the GSP status has been restored, do you see garment exports picking up and growing, like you mentioned?
We had this particular issue latter part of 2010, August, if I can remember right.
Yeah.
Before we lost GSP Plus, people say that, many thousands of people will lose jobs, we will have almost, negative growth in apparel sector, and we might lose around $500 million in revenue. But what happens after, removal of GSP? The growth of exports and of apparel grew up almost by 25% for last 2 years. And being our main market, the USA, and had a growth rate of over 30% for our apparels. So that's why I said that since we produce the best products in garments or Ceylon tea or rubber, we name anything what we this thing, the external shocks are not basically have any negative impact on our exports.
Yeah. Moving on to the Expo 2012 event itself, where the true essence of Sri Lankan entrepreneurship will be there on display. Nearly about 70% of Sri Lanka's exports are being absorbed into about 9 countries, you say, around 9 countries.
Yeah, a few countries,
Yeah.
Yes.
How do you see this event, the Expo 2012, as addressing this limitation and expanding markets?
In our strategic plan, for the next 5 years, for 2011 to 2015, we are looking at market shift as well.
Okay.
In the sense like we have been depending on Europe and America. And as you said that, we have, those countries have many issues, on their own.
Yeah.
So it's better that we
Look
find
at
our
other avenues as well.
like countries like India, China, Singapore, Malaysia. It's happening.
Big emerging countries.
Big emerging countries. And, we are sitting on, population of around 60% of the world, talking about, few billions,
Yeah.
So we are looking at new markets, and if you look at the Indian market, so exports to India was around, 5 to 6% of our total exports, but now it is gone beyond 10% to India. So market shift is taking place, diversification is taking place. Those are good signs.
Yeah. And what specific steps have you taken through this Expo 2012 to attract investments in key sectors like spices and other emerging products, sir?
We have been, famous for spices for thousands of years.
Yes.
And we got invaded
Since the
by,
British.
the countries because of our spices.
Yeah.
And if you can remember, like we branded Ceylon cinnamon sometime back in the world, that is to secure the markets into these countries. Cinnamon is also doing well, but our problem with spices is, limited supply. So, again, like when it comes to our products, I've been repeating this, in many places, like you take garments or tea or spices or rubber, whatever it is. We have specific the quality in those prints, quality things that we produce. And we supply to niche markets with a premium price. So therefore only that our exports is growing almost by over 20% every year. So we are quite hopeful that, if the growth sustain with these events of this nature, attracting, many investors and exporters.
Would be able to.
Yeah, the reaching 15 billion before 2015 is a possibility.
Yeah. And also, in a post-war era and at a time where rapid development is taking place in our country, how significant do you think the Expo 2012, an event of such big status, is going to be for our country?